September 14, 2013, 7:42 p.m. Beverly Hills. The lights inside the private dining room at the Polo Lounge are low, the kind that make decisions feel expensive. Three studio executives sit across from one of the most bankable actors in Hollywood. There's no script on the table, just a leather folder. Inside it, a contract worth $20 million. Outside, flashbulbs pop against tinted windows. Inside, the air is still. The franchise they're discussing is already a cultural juggernaut. 2 films released, billions in global box office, theme park expansion in negotiation, merchandise lines pre-approved, the character being offered, a central figure in what will become one of the defining cinematic universes of the decade. This is not an audition, this is a coronation. The actor listens quietly, no interruptions, no visible excitement, just small nods, fingers interlocked. The studio head leans forward. This locks you in for 3 pictures: back-end participation, global tour, we build the next phase around you. Around you. In Hollywood language, that means control, visibility, immortality. And then something subtle happens, a pause. Not a scheduling concern, not a salary negotiation, a pause that feels heavier. The actor asks one question. How long before audiences stop seeing me and only see the costume? The room shifts. You can almost hear the mental math recalibrating. Because here's what most people don't understand about peak earning power: it's not the money that creates pressure, it's the timing. At that moment in 2013, this actor's career was at its apex. Critical acclaim, awards buzz, prestige dramas, a brand built carefully over a decade, intense roles, transformative performances, unpredictability. And now, a franchise machine is offering permanence. But permanence in Hollywood can look a lot like confinement. The executives assure flexibility, script approval, character arc depth. But the subtext is clear: once you step into this universe, you don't step out easily. Press tour become annual rituals, characters become action figures, dialogue becomes meme culture. The actor leaves dinner without signing. 2 weeks later, the agent calls the studio. It's a polite decline, gracious, strategic. No press release, no public announcement. Just silence. Months later, another actor takes the role. The film breaks records, the character becomes iconic. Halloween costumes worldwide, spin-offs, streaming dominance. And yet, something unexpected happens. The one who said no doesn't disappear. They vanish on purpose. No new projects announced for nearly 18 months. No red carpets, no interviews. Tabloids speculate about burnout. Industry insiders whisper about a miscalculation. But this isn't burnout. This is restraint. In a system that rewards constant presence, choosing absence is radical. Because sometimes the most powerful move in Hollywood is stepping back when everyone expects you to step forward. And what happened during that quiet disappearance would quietly redefine how studios negotiate power with A-list talent. The calls don't stop just because you say no. October 2013. The actor's agency office in Century City is fielding new scripts daily. Franchise competitors, streaming originals, award season bait. The industry assumption is simple: if someone declines a mega-universe role, they must be holding out for something bigger. But that's not what's happening. Inside the actor's home office, minimalist, quiet, deliberately disconnected, the conversation is different. No assistants, no stylists, just notebooks, margin notes, long walks without phones. Because here's the truth few people talk about: at the top of Hollywood, success becomes a treadmill. The more bankable you are, the less space you're given to hesitate. Studios build release calendars around your availability. Agents negotiate based on momentum curves. Publicists track relevance cycles. You're not just an actor, you're an asset class. And assets are not supposed to rest. Psychologically, that's where the fracture begins. For years, this actor had been praised for intensity, total immersion, physical transformations, emotional extremity, but each performance required months of depletion, weight changes, dialect work, emotional excavation. After every project came a recovery period. The franchise offer would have erased that recovery. 3 films, 5 years, marketing obligations, convention appearances, brand partnerships. The costume wouldn't just be worn on screen, it would follow into airports, hotel lobbies, late-night talk shows. You can almost feel the claustrophobia of that future. Typecasting doesn't happen overnight, it happens slowly, repetition, association, algorithms. Eventually audiences stop asking what will they play next and start saying that's the superhero actor. Identity compresses. And for someone whose power came from unpredictability, compression was the real threat. The agency pushed back at first, quietly, respectfully. Momentum is everything, one senior partner warned. Disappear too long and the machine moves on. But the actor wasn't trying to preserve momentum, they were trying to preserve autonomy. There's a difference. So instead of jumping into another blockbuster, they did something even more confusing to the industry. Nothing. No festival premieres, no streaming cameo, no voiceover deals. For nearly a year, there are only scattered sightings, a theater workshop in London, a private directing class, a rumored indie script being rewritten from scratch. Studios begin recalculating. Because in Hollywood, scarcity creates anxiety, but it also creates leverage. When someone is always available, negotiations are about price. When someone becomes unavailable, negotiations become about value. Behind closed doors, development executives start holding projects just in case. Scripts are rewritten with this actor in mind. Financing decks mention their name as a possibility even without confirmation. Absence strangely amplifies demand. And then, 18 months after that dinner at the Polo Lounge, the silence breaks. Not with a franchise announcement. With something no one predicted. March 3, 2015, 9:18 a.m. Park City, Utah. Snow presses softly against the windows of a small Sundance screening room, no red carpet barricades, no branded step and repeats, just folding chairs, coffee cups, and a handwritten poster outside the theater door. The film's budget, under $6 million. No CGI, no franchise logo. No action figures waiting in warehouses. And in the third row, hood pulled low, sits the actor who turned down $20 million. The premiere begins without fanfare. The opening scene is quiet, intimate, a character study about moral compromise and aging ambition. The performance is restrained, almost fragile, no spectacle. No grand monologues engineered for awards clips. Just stillness. You can feel the room leaning in. This isn't a comeback, it's a recalibration. The industry had expected either escalation or retreat, bigger films or total disappearance. What they didn't anticipate was precision. Because this project wasn't random. While the public assumed a hiatus, the actor had been building something deliberately behind the scenes, meeting with independent producers, negotiating creative control clauses, taking executive producer credits, shaping final cuts. The pause wasn't emptiness, it was strategy. By stepping away from constant visibility, they'd reset the terms of engagement. Now, instead of being cast into pre-existing universes, they were shaping the universe itself. At Sundance, critics begin writing words they hadn't used in years: controlled, disciplined, risk-taking. The narrative shifts subtly. Instead of bankable star, headlines start using selective and intentional. That language matters. In Hollywood, perception is currency. When the franchise film they declined dominates the global box office that same summer, something interesting happens. Interviewers ask about it gently, cautiously. The actor doesn't criticize, doesn't regret, doesn't even elaborate. A simple answer. It wasn't the right chapter for me. No drama, no tension, just calm ownership. And that composure sends a message through studio corridors. Because here, what executives understand better than anyone: an actor who doesn't chase scale cannot be pressured by scale. By 2016, offers looked different. Fewer multi-film lock-ins, more profit participation, more script approval, more scheduling flexibility. The power dynamic has shifted not because of dominance but because of restraint. You can almost see the recalibration happening in real time. Other actors begin quietly observing. Agents begin referencing this case in negotiation rooms. Longevity strategy becomes a phrase whispered in development meetings. The pause wasn't a risk, it was a signal. Hollywood adjusts around those who refuse to orbit it blindly. And then comes the final twist, the part no one predicted when that $20 million contract slid across a dinner table in 2013. The real influence of the pause wasn't just personal. It started changing how the industry defines power itself. Los Angeles, 2017, a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. On one side of the table sits a studio chief with a slate packed for the next 5 years, sequels, reboots, cinematic universe expansions mapped like military campaigns. On the other side sits the actor who once walked away from a guaranteed franchise throne. But this time the energy is different. There is no leather folder waiting, no pre-written trilogy deal. Instead, there's a script that doesn't yet have a green light. A mid-budget drama with awards potential but financial uncertainty. The studio needs prestige, they need credibility, they need someone whose name signals seriousness, not spectacle. And suddenly, the actor who declined scale has become the stabilizing force for scale. This is the shift no one predicted. When you're constantly visible in Hollywood, your value is measured by numbers, opening weekend totals, social media engagement, overseas pre-sales. But when you step back strategically, your value becomes symbolic. You represent discernment, you represent taste. You represent restraint in a system addicted to expansion. The negotiation reflects that. Creative control clauses are no longer debated, they're offered. Back-end points increase. Marketing commitments become optional, not mandatory. There's even discussion of development deals where the actor can bring projects forward, not just star in them. You can feel the inversion of gravity. The pause didn't weaken demand, it purified it. Inside agencies across town, younger actors are paying attention. They've grown up watching cinematic universes dominate culture. They've seen what happens when faces become permanently fused to capes, catchphrases, and action figures. But now there's a counterexample. A blueprint that says power doesn't only come from ubiquity, it can come from unpredictability. Psychologically, that matters. For performers, identity is fragile. The more audiences associate you with one version of yourself, the harder it becomes to evolve. The actor who declined the franchise understood that early, not out of fear but out of foresight. There's a quiet confidence in saying, I don't need to be everywhere to matter. That confidence ripples outward. Studios begin recalibrating long-term contracts. Instead of locking stars into decade-long commitments without flexibility, clauses begin appearing that allow creative exits. Prestige divisions regain attention. Mid-budget films, once squeezed by blockbuster dominance, regain viability when anchored by actors who value depth over scale. The industry doesn't transform overnight, but it tilts slightly. And tilt is enough. Because Hollywood runs on precedent. Once one A-list figure proves that selective absence doesn't erase relevance, the fear of stepping back weakens. Fear is what keeps the machine moving at relentless speed. Remove fear even slightly, and the machine has to negotiate. By 2019, the actor's filmography looks different than it would have in that alternate timeline. Fewer red carpets, fewer franchise premieres, more festival circuits, a producing credit here, a directing exploration there. Financially still secure. Culturally possibly more respected. But the deeper impact isn't in awards or box office, it's in leverage. The actor now chooses projects based on alignment, not availability, and Hollywood surprisingly adjusts. Because here's the unspoken truth. The industry needs stars who say no. Without resistance, there is no recalibration. And what began as a quiet rejection of a $20 million role has evolved into something much more influential, a redefinition of what career power looks like in the streaming era. But there's one final layer to this story. It's not about contracts, not about prestige. It's about control. There's no superhero suit hanging in the wardrobe trailer, no motion capture rigs, no global press embargo looming. Just a quiet rehearsal space, a director adjusting blocking, and the actor, older now, steadier, reviewing pages with a kind of calm that only comes from control. Control not over the industry. Control over themselves. That's the layer most people miss. When the $20 million offer was declined years earlier, headlines never formed. There was no public debate. But internally, something shifted. The actor proved privately that they didn't need the machine to validate their trajectory. And once you don't need it, your relationship to it changes. Psychologically, this is the turning point. Hollywood conditions performers to equate visibility with survival. Stay relevant, stay trending, stay attached to something big. The fear underneath is simple: if you step away, you'll be forgotten. But the pause disproved that fear. Instead of fading, the actor's absence created narrative mystique. Instead of being replaced, they became rarer. And rarity in Hollywood isn't a liability, it's power. By the early 2020s, the career looks intentional in a way few do. A prestige limited series that earns critical acclaim. A supporting role in an auteur-driven film that reshapes industry conversations. Select producing credits that elevate new voices. The throughline isn't dominance, it's discernment. Studios now approach with proposals, not assumptions. There's collaboration instead of coercion. The power dynamic is balanced because the actor has demonstrated a willingness to walk away. You can feel the difference in interviews: fewer defensive answers, more clarity, a grounded tone when discussing choices. There's no regret about the franchise that became a global phenomenon. No envy, just acknowledgement that it belonged to a different chapter, one that wasn't aligned with the long-term vision. And that's the real story. Not a rejection, a redirection. In a business obsessed with expansion, the actor chose contraction. In a culture that equates busyness with importance, they chose space. And in doing so, they reshaped how power can function in Hollywood's modern era. Because power isn't just about commanding the biggest stage. Sometimes it's about proving you can leave the stage and still have the spotlight waiting when you return. You can almost trace the alternate timeline: the franchise premieres, the action figures, the endless press tour, the fixed identity. Instead, there's evolution. The $20 million role would have guaranteed visibility. The pause guaranteed longevity. And in an industry that rarely slows down, that may be the rarest form of influence of all.